Hello and greetings from Iceland. This volcanic eruption that we have been waiting for has been developing into this major teaser, keeping us Icelanders on our toes and me on the road until 2 days ago when I drove back north after I had filmed basically everything related to this, while the seismometers were not showing any signs at all. But I did, however, come back with footage that was very much appreciated as a part of my documentation. Like on Tuesday, the 18th, I did my usual trip to Grindavik, and first I made a few time lapses showing the degassing. That looks always interesting. And then I drove into Grindavik, where I found a scene that was very important actually, or this house, the local retirement home, or the demolition work there. And I actually covered this building first in 2022 when I made a long video about the things that could come, or one of my first mini documentaries after I got my first proper drone. And that video includes the Sundhnúkar craters, or how they looked before those 7 eruptions. And from them I was showing the fault that runs from the craters and through the town. And I was using aerial photos from the time since before the town was fully built, while some of those features were way more visible than they are today. And I did mention the retirement home because it's the longest building in town, built directly over a massive fault. And my sarcastic approach in that video was asking if the idea was to use the building to cement the fault together. And then we went through the November 10th event, and it turned out that the fault took off and the building with it. But most of the building is, however, okay today. It is the wing that was built in 2017 that got hit bad, and it was totally ruined. And that part of the building had 6 apartments, and the demolition work had just started when I arrived to town. So I drained the 2 drone batteries, hovering over the machines. Then I drove back to Reykjavik, to my friend's house where I've been living. And I did what I usually do. I took out the memory card with the catch of the day. And while I was connecting the batteries to my charger, my friend's cat misunderstood something. And it almost became the first 256 gigabyte cat in Iceland. And although the card didn't taste as well as the cat expected, the young lady had some explaining to do.
Jæja, köttur. Hvernig geturðu útskýrt þetta?
And although the card was a write-off, I had, of course, a backup card, and I returned to Grindavik the day after to film the demolition work again, because the cat got to the memory card before I had the chance to put it in the card reader. And this time, the machines had chewed their way further into the building than the day before, and they were just about to grab Granny's pancakes from the kitchen cabin when I arrived. And shooting a scene like this, it got me actually quite frustrated, because this is a building from 2017, this wing, and everything was demolished. And I think it is the state-owned natural disaster insurance company that gave the order to do things like this. And I know for a fact that other houses in the town are awaiting the same fate. And I used the clips from this for my little Icelandic channel. And I sent a link to the Icelandic media with many questions, because I know that footage like this will make many people furious. So that is a story that's being worked on right now. And I'm also sure that many of the local people will be furious when they see this. This is so much disrespect for value, reuse and recycle. So many things that could have been used, and all they needed to do was to make an ad and offer all this building material for a fraction of its worth or nothing, just to get this bunch sorted for free, because that would have left little or nothing for the machines to sort, just the concrete. But the concrete in the building is actually showing a bit about the Icelandic building regulations, or how much iron we use. And that has, of course, to do with what kind of land we live in. And although this footage is kind of sad, it is also symbolic for the times to come to bring life to this town again. And there are about 700 people that are working there every day now. So a part of the local economy has returned, but we want more. Those who own their own properties there and didn't sell them, they can live there. But those who sold, they sold it to a state-owned company that actually bought around 1,000 residential properties. And that was done to give the people a chance to start fresh elsewhere. And the idea was to allow them at some point in time to rent back or even buy back the property. But that is all frozen and going nowhere. And the pressure is on now because the government support to the former residents will come to an end. It will mean that more of the former residents will want to move back full-time, but the option to rent their old homes has not been opened. But that option would leave them the flexibility to see if they are willing to return full-time without the commitment to buy back the house, see how the kids function in the town and such. And such a rental agreement, it would also help this state-owned company that owns those buildings now to deal with maintenance and energy bills. So it would be a win-win situation to open up this possibility after this next eruption that many believe to be the last one. But we live in a time of regulation chaos that tends to override common sense again and again, like we saw very clearly in the demolition work. And when we look at the risk assessment, the absolutely worst case scenario for the town would be to see the little fissure that erupted in January last year extend further into the town. But the eruptive part of the fissure has been developing the other way, to the northeast. We hardly get any earthquakes in the town itself. So it is this little part of the danger zone that is holding back many important decisions. Or a classic example of public servants who are too afraid of decision making, just keeping things in a holding pattern. That is not good, because what the town needs is a soft start. Give the people a chance to come back, see if they adapt. And you also have to keep small business owners in mind. They did not get the same help as many others. Like we have several small guest houses there. And it's very hard for them to operate. And the only way to get a local convenience store reopened is to make sure that there are people living in a town full-time. And the same goes for cafes and other basic services. And experts have been saying that this might be the last eruption, since the inflow to this source of this disaster, the magma chamber under Svartsengi, or magma sill, the inflow has been gradually decreasing. That is no longer a wild guess, but a fact. And I'm asking myself now, could that be the reason for why the magma reservoir hasn't built up enough pressure? Is that the struggle? Because we don't even see any earthquakes there. And that is actually the reason for why the so-called Krafla fires were never declared as over, or the 9 eruptions that occurred in North Iceland between 1975 and 1984. We were always waiting for eruption number 10 there. That never occurred. Since the last chapter of Ground Uplit, it failed to pressurize enough to come up with a volcanic eruption. So is that the case in Grindavik? Will this magma that is already there just solidify and put a plug into this sequence of events? And it's not for me to say, although I've always had the feeling that we were over the point of no return, and this would erupt, and I still expect so. And the Icelandic media, they have been silent about this since yesterday. They have not been calling any experts due to a huge political scandal that shook the nation, way more than any earthquake recently. So the media kind of forgot everything about geology. And I think they will be busy covering this scandal the whole weekend. But my weekend, it will be used for video processing. I'm finally getting some time to work on my more time-consuming videos, many of which are meant for the tourist part of my channel. And that's where I'm making content with a longer lifetime than my volcano updates. So I needed time here up north because I can't do proper voiceover in Reykjavik due to the location, traffic sound and more. So it's good to be home, but I'm of course ready to hit the road again. And since the ground uplift seems to have almost stopped, it's no way to say where this is taking us this time. But the longer we have to wait, the more likely it is that it could be some kind of surprise that we actually don't need, but let's just see. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from the volcano island, Iceland.